Ambassador Krelvith had served the Galactic Council for 300 cycles. His 4 eyes had seen empires fall. His 16 tentacles had signed treaties that ended wars lasting centuries. He had spoken with beings made of pure light and negotiated with hive minds that stretched across entire planets. Nothing in his long career had prepared him for his new assignment. He was going to Earth. He was going to meet humans. The briefing room on Station Central was cold and quiet. Krelvith sat alone, his body wrapped in the formal robes of a senior ambassador. Before him floated a holographic screen filled with text. Red warning symbols blinked at the top of every page. This was the warning archives. Every diplomat who dealt with dangerous species had to read them. Krelvith had read files on the Vorathi, a warrior race that ate their enemies. He had studied the Silken Minds, beings that could drive other species insane with a thought. None of those files had this many warnings. The human file was different. It started simply enough. Humans came from a planet called Earth. They had been in space for only 400 cycles. They were made of soft flesh and fragile bones. They lived short lives, rarely more than 100 of their planet's years. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no poison, no armor. Krelvith's first thought was simple. Why would the Council worry about such weak creatures? Then he kept reading. Earth was classified as a Category 12 death world. The planet tried to kill its inhabitants in every way possible. The weather was violent and unpredictable. The ground shook and split open. Mountains exploded with liquid fire. The water was filled with creatures that existed only to eat other creatures. Disease spread through the air itself. Humans had not just survived on this nightmare planet. They had conquered it. They had hunted the great predators to near extinction. They had built cities in frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They had poisoned their own sky with industry and then, when they realized their mistake, had started to fix it. Most species fled their death worlds the moment they developed space travel. Humans looked at their hellish home and decided they loved it. Krelvith felt his tentacles twitch with unease. The file continued with a section marked in bright red. It was titled, Combat Psychology. Krelvith read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. All known species had a survival instinct. When faced with danger, they would fight or flee. Most chose to flee when the odds were against them. This was logical. This was sane. This was how intelligent beings stayed alive. Humans had a broken survival instinct. When faced with danger, humans could enter a mental state that their scientists called many names: rage, fury, battle madness. The files used a simpler term: Berserk. In this state, humans stopped caring about their own survival. Pain became meaningless. Fear disappeared. Their bodies flooded with chemicals that made them faster and stronger. They would continue fighting with injuries that should have killed them. They would attack enemies many times their size. They would die with their hands around their enemy's throat. Smiling. This was not normal. This was not sane. This was terrifying. Krelvith found a list of documented incidents. A human female had lifted a ground vehicle weighing 2,000 kilograms to save her offspring trapped underneath. A human male had continued fighting for 6 hours with a metal rod through his chest. A group of human soldiers, surrounded and out of ammunition, had charged a fortified position with nothing but knives and raw fury. They had won. The file included a warning in bold text. Do not threaten what humans consider family. Their definition of family is broad and unpredictable. It may include blood relatives, friends, romantic partners, colleagues, pets, and in some cases, complete strangers they have decided to protect. Below this was another warning. Humans bond with other species, easily. If a human has decided you are their friend, they will die for you. If a human has decided you are their enemy, they will make sure you die first. Krelvith closed the file for a moment. He needed to think. He had dealt with aggressive species before. The key was always the same. Find what they fear. Find what they want. Use these things to control them. Every species could be managed this way. But what did you do with a species that could turn off its own fear? He opened another section of the file. This one was titled, Historical Context. Humans had not always been united. For most of their history, they had been divided into groups called nations. These nations had fought each other constantly. The wars grew larger and more destructive over time. 3 times, they had fought wars that spread across their entire planet. The last of these wars had nearly destroyed them. They had built weapons that could poison the land for generations. They had killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. When the war finally ended, their civilization lay in ruins, and they had rebuilt. They had looked at the ashes of their world and decided to try again. They had created a unified government. They had reached for the stars. They had found other species and, against all logic, had tried to make friends with them. Krelvith found this the most disturbing part of the file. A species that had nearly destroyed itself should have been broken. They should have been cautious and afraid. Instead, humans seemed to view their own history as a lesson learned. They spoke of their wars with sadness but also with a strange pride. They had survived. They had grown. They would not make the same mistakes again, but they had made it very clear that they would make new mistakes if anyone threatened them. The door to the briefing room opened. An ancient being floated inside. This was Yelathri, a Sophrix elder who had mentored diplomats for over 1,000 cycles. Her body was made of crystallized energy, shifting through colors that most species could not see. "You have read the file," Yelathri said. Her voice was like wind through hollow glass. "I have," Krelvith replied. "I do not understand these creatures." Yelathri made a sound that might have been laughter. "No one does. That is the problem. How do I negotiate with beings who do not fear death?" The ancient Sophrix drifted closer. Her light dimmed, which Krelvith knew meant she was being serious. "The humans have a saying," Yelathri told him. "They say that all species have two choices when facing danger: fight or flight. Most species choose flight, when survival demands it. Humans seem to have evolved with a broken switch. They choose fight even when it makes no sense. Especially when it makes no sense. That is madness." "Yes," Yelathri agreed. "But it is a madness that has kept them alive on a world that should have killed them. It is a madness that makes them the most loyal friends in the galaxy. And it is a madness that makes them the most dangerous enemies any species has ever faced." Krelvith looked back at the glowing file. The warnings seemed to pulse with urgency. "What happens if I fail?" he asked. "What happens if I say the wrong thing and they become angry?" Yelathri's light flickered. For the first time in his long career, Krelvith saw something like fear in his mentor's ancient form. "Then pray to whatever gods you believe in," she said softly. "Because when humans go berserk, even gods cannot save you." Station Nexus 7 floated in the empty space between three great empires. It was neutral ground, a place where enemies could meet without weapons, a place where words replaced warfare. For 200 cycles, it had hosted the most important negotiations in the galaxy. Today, it would witness the beginning of a war. Ambassador Krelvith stood at the edge of the great circular chamber. His formal robes felt heavy on his body. His 4 eyes moved constantly, watching the 3 delegations that had gathered for the trade negotiations. On one side sat the Varathi Combine. They were insectoid creatures, tall and covered in black armor that grew from their own bodies. Their high merchant, Zulkrath, clicked his mandibles as he studied datapads filled with numbers and demands. The Varathi were known for 2 things. They were excellent traders, and they were brutal warriors who showed no mercy to those who opposed them. On another side sat Krelvith's own people, the Valanthi hegemony. They were observers today, watching how these negotiations would unfold. And on the third side sat the humans. There were only 5 of them. Their leader was a woman named Sarah Chen. She was small compared to the Varathi. Her body had no armor, no claws, no natural weapons of any kind. She wore simple clothing in dark colors. Her hair was pulled back from her face. Her eyes were calm and patient. Krelvith had been watching her for 3 days. She never raised her voice. She never made threats. She smiled often and spoke with warmth even to those who insulted her. She had brought gifts for the other delegations. Small things, bottles of human wine, books of human poetry, gestures of friendship. The Varathi had laughed at the gifts. Zulkrath had called them trinkets, fit for children. Ambassador Chen had simply smiled and continued negotiating. The issue was simple. The Kepler Belt was a ring of asteroids rich in rare metals. A human colony had been established on Kepler 7b, a small moon on the edge of this belt. 30,000 humans lived there. Miners, engineers, families. The Varathi Combine wanted the belt. They had arrived with a fleet of warships and declared the entire region their territory. The humans had refused to leave. For 3 days, they had talked. The humans had offered to share the resources. They had suggested joint mining operations. They had proposed treaties that would benefit everyone. The Varathi had refused everything. Now, on the 4th day, High Merchant Zulkrath had grown tired of talking. The insectoid leader rose from his seat. His body was nearly 3 meters tall. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across his armor, shifting from blue to angry red. This was a threat display, a warning that the Varathi were done with peaceful discussion. "Your species is young," Zulkrath said. His voice was a series of clicks and hisses that the translation devices turned into words. "You have been in space for only a few hundred cycles. We have been building empires since before your ancestors learned to walk upright." Ambassador Chen remained seated. Her face showed nothing. "The mining rights to the Kepler belt are not negotiable," Zulkrath continued. "The Combine has claimed them. This is not a request. This is a statement of fact." "The colony was established legally," Chen replied. Her voice was calm and steady. "Under Galactic Council law, we have every right to be there." Zulkrath made a sound that might have been laughter. "Laws are written by the powerful. We are powerful. You are not." He leaned forward, his massive form looming over the human delegation. "If you resist," he said slowly, making sure every word was clear, "we will simply remove the human colony on Kepler 7b. Our fleet will turn that little moon to dust. 30,000 humans will die. And then we will take what we want anyway." The chamber went silent. Krelvith felt his heart stop. He had seen the warning files. He knew what was about to happen. But knowing and seeing were different things. Ambassador Chen did not move for a long moment. Her hands were flat on the table before her. Her breathing was slow and controlled. Then something changed. It was small at first. Her shoulders shifted slightly. Her spine straightened. The muscles in her jaw tightened. Her eyes, which had been warm and friendly for 3 days, went cold and empty. When she smiled, it was not a gesture of friendship. Her lips pulled back to show her teeth. It was a predator's smile. A wolf, looking at wounded prey. Krelveth's environmental sensors screamed warnings. Human pheromone levels were spiking. Adrenaline, cortisol, other chemicals his equipment could not identify. Every human in the delegation was experiencing the same reaction. Their bodies were preparing for violence. "Did you just threaten my people?" Chen asked. Her voice was quiet. Somehow, that made it worse. Krelveth had expected shouting. He had expected rage. This cold, controlled fury was far more terrifying. Zulkrath's threat display flickered. For the first time, the High Merchant seemed uncertain. "I stated a fact," he said. "The Combine has the power to destroy your colony. This is simply truth." "I see." Chen stood slowly. She was so much smaller than the Varathi leader, a child standing before a monster. Yet somehow, the power in the room had shifted. "Let me state some facts of my own," she said. 30,000 people live on Kepler 7b. Families, children, people who left Earth to build a new life among the stars. They trusted their government to protect them. They trusted me to protect them. She stepped around the table, moving closer to Zulkrath. Her human colleagues made no move to stop her. "You just threatened to murder 30,000 innocent people to steal some rocks," Chen continued. "You laughed while you said it. You thought we would be afraid." She stopped directly in front of the towering insectoid. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw that statement," she said. 30 seconds to apologize for threatening human lives. 30 seconds to pretend this conversation never happened. Zulkrath's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Or what? What will you do, little mammal?" Chen's smile grew wider, colder. "Our first interstellar warship was named the Spite," she said. "Do you know why? Because when humans are angry, we do not calculate the cost of revenge. We do not weigh the odds. We simply destroy whatever threatened us, no matter how long it takes, no matter what it costs us." She glanced at the chronometer on her wrist. 20 seconds. Zulkrath looked at the other delegations. He looked at Krelveth, seeking support. Krelveth looked away. He wanted no part of what was coming. "You are bluffing," Zulkrath said. "Your species cannot match our military power. You would be destroyed." "Maybe," Chen agreed. But we would make sure you were destroyed first. Every ship, every colony, every Vorathi world. We would burn it all, even if it meant burning ourselves in the process. That is madness. Yes, Chen said. It is. That is what makes us dangerous. The chronometer on her wrist beeped. Time is up, she said. She turned and walked back to her delegation. Her people were already standing, gathering their things. Their faces showed no fear, only cold determination. The Combine does not negotiate with insects, Zulkrath called after her. We will take what we want. Chen stopped at the door. She looked back over her shoulder. Then you will learn why the galaxy fears us, she said. And when your worlds are burning, remember this moment. Remember that you had a chance to walk away. She left without another word. Krelvith sat frozen in his seat. The warning archives had told him what humans were capable of, but reading about their fury and witnessing it were very different things. Beside him, one of his aides whispered a question. What happens now? Krelvith thought about the human files. The wars they had fought. The enemies they had destroyed. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. Now, he said quietly, the Vorathi learn why you should never threaten what humans love. 3 solar cycles had passed since the failed negotiations. 3 cycles of warnings and demands and threats. The Vorathi Combine had laughed at every human message. They had moved their fleet into position around the Kepler belt. They had given the colony one final chance to surrender. The humans had refused. Now Krelvith stood on the observation deck of a council monitoring vessel, watching history unfold. The Vorathi fleet was impressive. 42 warships hung in the darkness of space. Each one was a massive construct of black metal and weapons arrays. The smallest of them was larger than most species' capital ships. They had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the human colony, cutting off any escape. High Merchant Zulkrath had sent one final message to the humans. It was simple. Surrender or die. The response from Earth had been equally simple. A single word that the translation software struggled to process. The closest meaning it could find was no. But the tone carried something more. Defiance. Challenge. Promise. The humans are insane, muttered a Valanthi officer beside Krelvith. They have no fleet here. No defenses. How do they expect to fight? Krelvith said nothing. He had read the warning files. He knew that human insanity had a tendency to become everyone else's problem. The answer came 12 minutes later. Space itself seemed to tear open. 12 points of light blazed into existence at the edge of the system. Hyperspace portals, larger than anything Krelvith had ever seen. Through them came ships, human ships. They were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were functional in the most brutal sense of the word. Angular hulls covered in weapon ports, engines that burned with blue fire, armor plates scarred from dozens of battles, 12 dreadnoughts, each one nearly as large as the biggest Vorathi vessel, each one bristling with enough weapons to crack a moon in half. The monitoring vessel's computer identified them one by one. Their names appeared on screen, and Krelvith felt a chill run through his body. Manifest Destiny, Reckoning, No Quarter, Final Answer, Remember the Fallen, Righteous Fury, Cold Revenge, Eternal Spite, Hell's Messenger, Death's Hand, Widowmaker, and leading them all, larger than the rest, covered in battle damage that had been left unrepaired like badges of honor, was the flagship. The translation software flickered and failed. Rebooted. Tried again. Finally, it displayed the name in stark letters. HMS Fuck Around and Find Out. Krelvith stared at the screen. He ran the translation 3 more times. Each time, the result was the same. The humans had actually named their flagship that. The Vorathi fleet began to move. 42 ships against 12. The odds were clearly in their favor. Zulkrath's voice crackled across all channels, broadcasting his amusement at the small human force. You bring 12 ships to face our armada? He mocked. You truly are a species of fools. The response came from the human flagship. The voice belonged to Admiral James Morrison, a human male whose service record included 30 years of combat across 4 different wars. His file in the warning archives was marked with 17 red flags. I brought 12 ships because I wanted this to be fair, Morrison replied. For you. Then the human fleet attacked. Krelvith had witnessed space battles before. They were usually careful affairs. Ships would maneuver for advantage. They would probe enemy defenses. They would look for weaknesses before committing to a full assault. The humans did none of this. They drove straight into the Vorathi formation at maximum speed. Their weapons began firing before they were even in optimal range. Missiles filled the space between the fleets. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The human ships did not try to dodge or evade. They simply absorbed the damage and kept coming. The first Vorathi ship exploded within minutes. Then the second. Then the third. The monitoring vessel's sensors struggled to track everything that was happening. Human ships were taking tremendous damage. Their armor was being torn apart. Entire sections were venting atmosphere into space. And still they fought. One human destroyer, the Cold Revenge, lost half its hull to a concentrated Vorathi barrage. Any sane crew would have retreated. Instead, the crippled ship accelerated, driving itself directly into the nearest Vorathi cruiser. Both vessels vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. Did they just... The Volanthi officer beside Krelvith could not finish the sentence. Yes, Krelvith said quietly. They did. The battle continued for 4 hours. 4 hours of constant violence. 4 hours of ships dying in flashes of light. 4 hours of human voices on the communication channels, shouting orders and battle cries and things that the translation software labeled as profanity. The Vorathi fought with skill and discipline. They outnumbered the humans. They had more firepower. They had every advantage that mattered in conventional warfare. But humans did not fight conventional warfare. They fought with something else. Something that could not be measured or quantified. The warning files had called it spite. Watching it in action, Krelvith understood what that word truly meant. A human cruiser, engines destroyed and weapons failing, used its last functioning thruster to position itself between a Vorathi battleship and the evacuation transports fleeing from the colony. It absorbed 17 direct hits before finally breaking apart. The transports escaped. The flagship, fuck around and find out, took damage that would have destroyed any other vessel 3 times over. Its captain, Admiral Morrison, was reportedly injured in the first hour. He refused to leave the bridge. He refused to retreat. He continued commanding his fleet while his own ship burned around him. When the battle finally ended, the result was impossible. 8 human ships remained, all of them heavily damaged. The Vorathi fleet was gone. Not defeated. Gone. 42 warships reduced to debris and memories. High Merchant Zulkrath's flagship had been the last to fall. The final transmission from his vessel was a demand for surrender. The humans had responded by firing every remaining weapon they had until the Vorathi ship ceased to exist. Admiral Morrison's voice came across all channels. It was tired. It was rough with pain and exhaustion. But it carried a weight that made entire species fall silent. The colony stands, he said. 30,000 human beings are safe tonight because we refuse to accept their death. The Vorathi Combine threatened our people. They laughed at our warnings. They thought their numbers made them invincible. His voice hardened. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. We do not fight to win. We fight until the threat is eliminated. We do not calculate acceptable losses. We calculate acceptable revenge. You can kill us. You can hurt us. You can burn our worlds and scatter our ashes across the stars. But you will never, ever make us surrender. A pause. When he spoke again, his words were simple. Any questions? The galaxy had no questions. Krelvith stood on the observation deck for a long time after the battle ended. He watched the human rescue ships arrive to tend to the wounded. He watched the evacuation transports return to their colony. He watched the survivors of the Berserker fleet limp home, their broken ships still somehow flying. He thought about the warning files. They had told him that humans did not accept defeat, that they would sacrifice everything to protect what they loved, that their fury, once unleashed, could not be stopped. The files had not prepared him for the reality. He began composing his report to the Galactic Council. It would be long and detailed. It would contain sensor data and casualty figures and tactical analysis. But the heart of the report would be simple. Do not threaten humanity, he would write. Do not assume that numbers or technology will protect you. Do not believe that they will behave rationally when you attack what they love. They are not like us. They are something else entirely. And when they go to war, they do not stop until their enemies are dust. He looked at the debris field that had once been the Vorathi fleet. 42 ships, thousands of warriors, all of them gone because one diplomat had threatened 30,000 human civilians. The warning files had been right. When humans went berserk, even gods could not save you. The throne chamber of light stretched for kilometers in every direction. Its walls were made of crystallized energy that had been harvested from dying stars. Its floor was a single perfect mirror that reflected infinity. At its center floated the god emperor Za'al the Eternal, ruler of the Volanthi hegemony for 3,000 cycles. Krelveth had been in this chamber many times. He had delivered reports on conquered worlds and signed treaties that remade entire regions of space. But he had never been this afraid. The god emperor was not a single being. Long ago, Za'al had been mortal like Krelveth, but 3 millennia of technological advancement had transformed him into something else entirely. His consciousness now existed across 1,000 different forms. Some were humanoid shapes made of metal and light. Others were vast constructs that orbited planets. One was rumored to be an entire moon, converted into a thinking machine. Today, 7 of these forms had gathered in the throne chamber. They floated in a circle around Krelveth, watching him with eyes that burned with ancient power. "You witnessed the battle," Za'al said. His voice came from all 7 forms at once, creating a harmony that shook the air itself. "You saw what the humans did to the Vorathi fleet." "I did. Magnificence," Krelveth replied. He kept his tentacles still and his voice steady. Fear was weakness, and weakness was death in the presence of the God Emperor. 42 warships, Za'al continued. The Vorathi had 42 ships. The humans had 12. And the humans won. They did. The 7 forms of Za'al moved closer. Their light grew brighter, more intense. Krelveth felt the heat on his skin. "This cannot be allowed," the God Emperor declared. "The humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They must be contained before they grow any stronger." Krelveth's heart began to beat faster. He had been afraid of this moment since receiving the summons to appear before Za'al. The God Emperor had ruled the hegemony through absolute power for 3,000 cycles. He did not tolerate threats. He did not allow rivals to exist. "Magnificence," Krelveth said carefully. "I must advise against hostile action toward Earth." The 7 forms went still. The light in the chamber flickered. "You advise against it?" Za'al's voice held a dangerous edge. "You, a simple ambassador, advise a god what he should do. I advise based on my observations. Magnificence. It is my duty to provide accurate information, even when that information is unpleasant. Then provide it. Tell me why I should not send my fleets to crush this young species before they become a true threat." Krelveth took a deep breath. He thought about the warning files. He thought about Ambassador Chen's cold fury. He thought about the burning wreckage of 42 Vorathi ships. "The humans are not like other species," he began. "They evolved on a death world. Their planet tried to kill them in every way possible. Predators, disease, natural disasters, climate changes that should have driven them to extinction. They survived it all. Many species survive death worlds," Za'al interrupted. "They become cautious, careful. They learn to avoid conflict. Yes, magnificence. But humans did not learn caution. They learned aggression. They did not flee from the things that tried to kill them. They hunted those things instead. They did not hide from the dangers of their world. They conquered those dangers." The God Emperor's forms shifted, showing what might have been curiosity. "Continue. When humans feel threatened, they do not calculate the odds of survival. They do not weigh costs against benefits. They enter a mental state that shuts down rational thought entirely. Their bodies become weapons. Their minds become focused on a single goal: destroy the threat, at any cost." "You describe animals," Za'al said dismissively. "Beasts that react on instinct. We have destroyed many such species. With respect, magnificence, you have not destroyed any species like this one. Humans are not mindless beasts. They are intelligent. They plan. They build. They create technology that rivals our own in some areas. But when they are pushed to their limits, when someone threatens what they love, all of that intelligence becomes focused on one thing: revenge." Krelveth paused, choosing his next words with care. The Vorathi had 3 times as many ships. They had superior firepower. By every measure that matters in warfare, They should have won. Instead, they were annihilated. Not defeated, annihilated. The humans did not stop fighting until every Vorathi ship was destroyed. And they lost 4 ships doing so, Zaal noted. Nearly half their fleet. Yes. And they considered that acceptable. The 7 forms exchanged glances. For the first time, Krelvith sensed uncertainty in the God Emperor's presence. They have a concept, Krelvith continued. They call it total war. When sufficiently provoked, humans redirect their entire civilization toward the destruction of their enemy. Every resource, every factory, every able body, everything becomes devoted to the war effort. That is inefficient. No species can sustain such an approach. They have done it 3 times. Magnificence. On their own world. Against each other. The last time, they built weapons that could poison the land for generations. They killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. Their cities were reduced to ashes. Their civilization nearly collapsed entirely. And this proves what? That they are self-destructive fools? It proves that they will destroy themselves before they surrender. It proves that no threat, no matter how terrible, will make them stop fighting. It proves that attacking them is not a path to victory. It is a path to mutual annihilation. The throne chamber fell silent. The 7 forms of Zaal floated motionless, processing this information. You believe they would fight us? The God Emperor finally asked. The Volanthi hegemony controls 60 star systems. We have fleets that number in the thousands. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have technology that makes us immortal. You believe these humans would fight against all of that? Yes, magnificence. I believe they would fight you with everything they have. And even if they lost, even if you destroyed every one of their ships and burned every one of their colonies, they would make sure you suffered for it. They would hurt you in ways that would take centuries to heal. I am a god, Zaal said. The words held absolute certainty. I have destroyed empires. I have ended species. I have existed for 3,000 cycles and nothing has ever threatened my rule. Krelvith bowed his head respectfully. Magnificence. The humans do not believe in gods. They have stories about beings of great power who ruled over them. In those stories, the humans often killed those beings. Stories. Myths. Fantasy. Yes. But the stories reveal how they think. Humans do not see power as absolute. They do not see any being, no matter how mighty, as beyond their reach. They look at gods and think, that can be killed. I just need to figure out how. One of Zaal's forms drifted closer to Krelvith. Its light dimmed to something almost gentle. You genuinely fear them, the God Emperor said. It was not a question. I respect them, Krelvith replied. I respect what they can do when pushed. I respect their loyalty to each other and their refusal to accept defeat. And yes, I fear what would happen if the hegemony gave them a reason to turn that fury against us. What do you recommend? Krelvith thought carefully before answering. Leave them alone, magnificence. Do not threaten their worlds. Do not harm their people. Let them grow and expand in their own corner of the galaxy. If they must be dealt with, let it be through trade and diplomacy. Make them our partners, not our enemies. And if they threaten us, then we will face that threat when it comes. But we should not be the ones to start a war with humanity. Because once started, I am not certain such a war could ever truly end. The 7 forms of Zaal pulled back, gathering in a tight cluster. Krelvith watched them communicate in ways he could not perceive. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, the God Emperor spoke. Your counsel is noted, Ambassador. The hegemony will take no action against humanity at this time, but we will watch them, we will study them, and if they prove to be a threat that cannot be managed, we will deal with them accordingly. Krelvith bowed deeply. That is wise, magnificence. As he left the throne chamber, Krelvith allowed himself a moment of relief. The God Emperor had listened. For now, humanity was safe from the hegemony's wrath, but he knew the truth. He had seen it in the battle at Kepler. He had heard it in Ambassador Chen's cold promise. Humanity did not need protection from the Volanthi. It was the Volanthi who needed protection from humanity. They just did not know it yet. The Galactic Council chamber was full for the first time in 50 cycles. Representatives from every major species had gathered. They sat in tiered rows that circled a central platform. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. all focused on a single issue: what to do about humanity. The battle at Kepler had changed everything. Before, humans had been seen as a young species, curious, friendly, perhaps a bit strange with their short lifespans and their odd habit of adopting creatures from other worlds as pets. Nothing to worry about. Now, the galaxy knew better. Krelvith stood at the central platform. His report on the Kepler incident had been distributed to every delegation. His recommendations had sparked arguments that lasted for weeks. Some species wanted to unite against humanity. Others wanted to ally with them immediately. A few suggested pretending humans did not exist and hoping they never came to visit. None of these options were realistic. "We cannot ignore humanity," Krelvith said, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the vast chamber. "They are spreading across the stars. They are building colonies. They are making contact with more species every cycle. Soon, they will be everywhere. We must decide how to interact with them." A Vorathi representative rose from his seat. The Vorathi Combine had been devastated by the battle. Their military was shattered. Their high merchant was dead. Their reputation for invincibility was gone. "They attacked us without warning," the representative said. His voice was bitter. "They destroyed our fleet. They murdered thousands of our warriors. These humans are monsters who must be contained." "You threatened to kill 30,000 civilians," Krelvith replied calmly, "including children. The humans responded to that threat. You started that conflict. They ended it." The Vorathi had no answer to this. A being of pure energy flickered at the edge of the chamber. This was a representative of the Void Dwellers, creatures so ancient that they had witnessed the birth of stars. They rarely spoke at council meetings. When they did, everyone listened. "We have observed humanity for some time," the Void Dweller said. Its voice was like distant thunder. "They are indeed unusual. They form attachments easily. They will die for creatures they have known for mere days. They will protect beings of other species as fiercely as they protect their own offspring. This is weakness," someone called from the crowd. "No," the Void Dweller replied. "This is their greatest strength. A human who stands alone is dangerous. A human who fights for something they love is unstoppable. They draw power from their connections to others. The more beings they care about, the more terrifying they become." Krelvith nodded. This matched his own observations perfectly. "The humans have a phrase," he said. "They call it fighting for the family. But their definition of family is strange. It can include blood relatives, yes, but it can also include friends, companions, pets, allies, even complete strangers who happen to need protection." He let that sink in. "If we harm a human, they will fight us. But if we harm something a human cares about, they will fight us forever. They will pursue revenge across generations. They will teach their children to hate us. They will never stop." A murmur ran through the chamber. "So what do you suggest?" asked a delegate from one of the inner worlds. "That we simply allow them to do whatever they want?" "I suggest we make them care about us," Krelvith said. Silence fell over the chamber. "Humans bond easily," he continued. "They want to make friends. They want to find allies. They want to protect the weak and punish the cruel. These are their instincts. We can use these instincts." He activated a holographic display showing a proposed document. "I recommend the creation of an official protocol for dealing with humanity. Not restrictions or containment measures. A guide for building positive relationships. A set of rules that will help every species in the galaxy understand how to stay on humanity's good side." The document expanded, filling the air with text and diagrams. "First, never threaten human civilians. This includes children, elderly, sick, or any non-combatants. Humans consider such threats unforgivable. They will respond with maximum force." He highlighted the next section. "Second, never harm creatures that humans have adopted. They bond with beings from other species. They call them pets, companions, or friends. These bonds are sacred to humans. Harming such creatures is treated the same as harming human children." "They bond with animals?" someone asked in disbelief. "They bond with everything," Krelvith replied. "I have documented cases of humans risking their lives for small furry creatures with no intelligence. Cases of humans attacking armed soldiers to protect plants that they had been growing for years. Their capacity for attachment has no rational limits." He continued through the document. "Third, do not underestimate them. Their bodies are soft. Their lifespans are short. but they are more dangerous than they appear. Any individual human can become a deadly threat if properly motivated. Any group of humans can become an army. Fourth, if you make an enemy of humanity, prepare to lose everything. They do not forgive easily. They do not forget. They will pursue revenge long after any other species would have given up. And fifth, Krelvith paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the chamber. If you make a friend of humanity, you will have that friend forever. They will fight for you, die for you, burn worlds for you. Their loyalty, once given, is absolute. The chamber fell silent as delegates considered his words. You are asking us to trust them, a skeptical voice called out. I am asking you to choose wisely, Krelvith replied. Humanity is rising. In a few centuries, they will be one of the great powers of the galaxy. We can be their enemies and face their fury, or we can be their friends and receive their protection. He deactivated the holographic display. The Vorathi chose to be enemies. Their fleet is debris. Their empire is broken. Their high merchant is dead. He let those words hang in the air. I recommend we choose differently. The vote took 3 days. There were arguments and debates and threats from species who felt that humanity should be destroyed before they grew any stronger. But in the end, the council voted to adopt Krelveth's protocol. It was called Envoy Alert 7701, the Human Relations Protocol. Every diplomatic vessel in the galaxy received a copy. Every trade station, every colony, every species that had contact with the wider galaxy was given the same warnings and recommendations. Do not threaten what humans love. Do not harm the innocent in their presence. Do not assume their friendly nature means weakness. Do not believe that superior numbers will protect you. And above all, do not make them angry. The document ended with a simple statement that would become famous across the galaxy. When humans go berserk, even gods cannot save you. Choose to be their friend. It is the only safe option. Krelveth reviewed the final document in his quarters aboard Station Central. He had spent decades working on this project. He had risked his career and his life to make the council understand. Now, finally, the work was done. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find a young human standing in the corridor. She was small, like all humans. Her hair was dark and her eyes were warm. She wore the uniform of a junior liaison officer. Her name, according to her badge, was Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez. Ambassador Krelvith, she said. I just wanted to thank you. Thank me? For the protocol? For making the galaxy understand us. She smiled. And for once, Krelvith did not find the expression threatening. A lot of species see us as monsters after what happened at Kepler. You helped them understand why we did what we did. You protected your people, Krelvith said simply. Any species would do the same. Maybe. But not every species would have someone like you explaining it to the galaxy. She offered her hand in the human gesture of friendship. On behalf of humanity. Thank you. Krelvith took her hand carefully. Her grip was warm and strong. Can I ask you something, Lieutenant? Of course. The warnings in the protocol. The descriptions of human fury. The examples of what happens when your people go berserk. Do you think they are accurate? Rodriguez considered the question. Honestly, I think you are being gentle. She laughed at his expression. We are capable of terrible things, Ambassador. We know this about ourselves. We have seen what we can do when we stop caring about anything except victory. Does that not frighten you? Sometimes. But we have learned to control it. To aim it. We do not fight without reason anymore. We do not destroy for the pleasure of destruction. Her expression grew serious. But we also do not back down when someone threatens the people we love. That part of us will never change. And if someone made the entire galaxy your enemy? Rodriguez's smile returned. But there was something sharp in it now. Something that reminded Krelvith of Ambassador Chen's cold fury in that negotiation chamber so long ago. Then the galaxy would learn why our ancestors called themselves the children of Earth. She said, our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived. We conquered. We spread to the stars. She leaned closer. If the galaxy wants to be our enemy, we will survive that too. And when we are done, the galaxy will be different. Because that is what humans do. We change things. We break what tries to break us. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We do not stop. She straightened and her smile became warm again. But I would rather make friends. That is also what humans do. We build families from strangers. We find things to love in the darkest places. We look at the universe and see not enemies to destroy, but friends we have not made yet. She offered her hand again. So what do you say, Ambassador? Would you like to be our friend? Krelvith looked at her hand. He thought about the warning files, the burning Vorathi fleet, the cold fury of Ambassador Chen, the absolute certainty of Admiral Morrison's voice as he declared victory. He thought about the God Emperor, ancient and powerful, choosing to leave humanity alone. He thought about the protocol he had written, designed to help the galaxy survive contact with this impossible species. And he took her hand. Yes, Lieutenant Rodriguez, he said. I believe I would. Her smile was bright and genuine, and for the first time, Krelvith understood why humans were so dangerous. It was not their fury. It was not their refusal to surrender. It was not their terrible capacity for destruction. It was the fact that they could offer all of that power to anyone they decided to love. And they decided to love so easily. The galaxy would never be the same. But perhaps, Krelvith thought as he shook hands with the young human officer, that was not a bad thing. Perhaps, with humanity as friends instead of enemies, the galaxy might actually become better. It was a strange thought. A hopeful thought. A very human thought. He decided to keep it.